Truth is,
it all started with this. An improvised line from Robert Downey Jr.
I am Iron Man.
And then after 20 movies, with a line that they reshot that was actually suggested by the editor of the movie, it felt like they ended everything with this.
Iron Man.
And of course, they've been continuing the franchise.
I am not a dick!
But emotionally, something's been missing. And I think the reasons why have been wildly misunderstood. Marvel hit a very difficult storytelling and emotional problem. Avengers Endgame was peak. It genuinely hit the highest emotion you could get. And I think that was the mistake, because where can you actually go from there? I don't think it's superhero fatigue. I think Marvel just needed time to rebuild. And now they've had time. And the thing that made me fall back in love with Marvel came from one of the most unexpected places. X Men 97 might just be my favorite Marvel ever, because it had this beautiful, kinetic editing to it.
This is catching your breath. That inhale of just coming out of the cave, that release when they're in the air, and when you've actually had that full breath, this is freaking cool.
These guys are the filmmakers of the show. And I sat down with them because I wanted to find out how they made a great show and what them as Marvel filmmakers could teach me how I could be a better editor. They taught me how to intercut a monologue with another scene to create a double meaning. The delicate balance of how pacing could risk offending audiences or respecting them. And how even dialogue has the same detailed choreography as an action sequence. But also with action sequences, they give me an editing breakdown of what they call the family road trip. This is the editing podcast recorded on Riverside. If you're new here, please subscribe. So Ivan, I will say when that happened, I did fist bump the air.
This is where we're hiding the ramp up. This whole scene, as we're going into that cave, right before we enter, this is the acceleration to get into another pacing level.
Essentially, that's a transition.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a Porsche.
What was important about that smile there? That felt like an important character moment to me.
This is them actually becoming a family. You see them coming together as the Summers. The action is doing a lot of work, but it's being told through the characters. It's that cheesy Cyclops, that we sprinkle in of that dad moment where it's just, my son thinks I'm cool.
You have a Porsche.
You're doing one of the golden formulas of an action sequence is make sure the action is still informing the character and the story.
It's another ramp up. We've had our moments kind of catch our breath with the car flying out. You've had that one comedy beat. This is now where we're at the final gear, full peril. Music is getting harder and harder.
They're boxing us in. Time stopping anything when you can't go back. Plow forward. Okay, let's show these.
I love that shot. If we're talking about family coming together, that already shows it really well. An interesting choice, though, is it just for pacing-wise? Just, all right, let's just knock off the roof. Even though this is Scott's car, let's just knock off the roof.
It's one of those kind of, telling through, showing it. This is what that character would do. Cable is not somebody who's going to lean out the window and start firing. He's going to need as much space as he can get. We squeeze this behemoth into this space, and so it's just pure storytelling through who these characters are,
That's fun. Yeah, it's a simple detail, but I love that.
You can have all this really wonderful and great action, but if you don't give the audience enough time to catch up to it, not to say you have to slow everything down, right? But you need to give the audience just enough time without them realizing it to catch up so they can comprehend what is being thrown at them. We can have the audience feel an action sequence.
Absolutely, I love that. I love that.
This is really almost like one of the first times these two characters touch. A lot of people I've noticed have missed it, but they give each other a fist bump as they're flying through the air. Cyclops is able to be dad here. You know, this is the first time he's got his son back. This is the family coming together as one.
But how are you through editing really telling the audience that this is the family coming together?
To have the feelings in real time, even though the action is not. Everything outside of them is happening at the same pacing, but you're giving them the space inside of that to have these emotional beats.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's not slowing down, it's giving them space. I think that's a phrase that I've been looking for a while. Thanks to that. I like that. How are you able to make us feel that isolated space?
Being very diligent about the amount of time per shot is relatively even. And so it doesn't feel like, we're kind of shifting pacing right now. It is decision, action, and the takeoff.
What were you trying to achieve there, and how did you execute it?
Act 1 is the introduction of the car, driving and being chased. This is the Act 3 of the resolution of this sequence. You're telling a mini story inside the larger story. You can kind of live in that space because we've already done all the acceleration.
Seems to be you kind of need to signal the transitions of that happening as well. That's why I was so interested. Yeah, it's like there was like so minimal cuts, but the feeling was so powerful there.
What you don't realize is we get a nice 3/4 wide shot seeing Scott, Nathan, and Jean. You're understanding what is happening. We're resetting the audience again just a little bit to give them oh, by the way, this is still happening. This is what's been happening the whole time. You're getting a clear view. If we go too wide, you lose the claustrophobia of this is why they have to escape. This is why it sucks, because there is no space. They're literally making their escape route. So if we go too wide, too comfortable, the threat could get lost,
In a way, the claustrophobia brings us closer into the action, but also emphasizes how much the family's now becoming closer as well, because they're now forced into this scenario. No comments on that. That's just fucking really valuable information. I love it. Oop, there we go. And I think this is it. That's the family coming together. That's the family shot. Okay, I can just tell that you guys as filmmakers was just very happy when you made this moment.
Yeah. This is catching your breath. Inhale of just coming out of the cave, and it's just that release when they're in the air. And when you've actually had that full breath, it's this moment of just, this is freaking cool.
This video was recorded by Riverside, the all-in-one video podcasting studio. Y'all know, we've been with Riverside for over a year now, and that's just because they keep adding amazing value to their product. Now they just released a new feature where you can use your phone as your webcam when you're podcasting. What? For a lot of us creators, if you didn't know, your phone is actually probably the best camera you can get, and now we can use it so seamlessly whether we're a guest or we're hosting a podcast. Or if you're on the road, you're traveling, you don't want to bring your whole camera gear setup, it's a lot. All you have to do is have your camera gear set up in your pocket. Easy peasy. I can now get that Riverside 4K resolution right from my phone, no problem. All you have to do is download the Riverside app on your phone, and then you go to the Riverside Studio on your laptop, and on your video input, you select connect to mobile cam. You'll get a QR code, you scan it, and there you go. Now we have a mobile webcam. And on top of this, you still get all of Riverside's amazing features, just like their AI enhanced video editor. Riverside has made it incredibly simple for your guests to have top-notch video quality, as well as make traveling and just creating content easier. So go ahead, sign up to Riverside for free. And if you want to use the paid version, use code editingpodcast for 15% off. Let's get back to the interview.
Telling versus showing. I'm even consulting on a project where they had like the voiceover of a documentary and they're just relying on that the whole time, and I'm like, I'm being told the story. Was there ever instances on the show where you had the opportunity to tell, but you really made sure that you wanted to show the story?
We read facial expressions. That's where we get a lot of subtextual acting. That's where we get a lot of communication. I mean, the reality is we're not talking to each other, but I'm making eye contact with the camera, so it feels like I'm talking to you guys. What happens when you have a character that has none of that?
Good guy or bad guy?
Name's Cyclops. Definitely the good guy.
His glints, whether they're on his visor or his glasses, those are his tells.
Hurt my friends? Well, now you answer to me.
Whether they're sharp and snappy, whether it's a slow glide. So that's what I appreciate about working on Cyclops, is just, the acting challenges he created.
Yeah, we had to be able to overcome the challenge of how can you tell the eye contact of Cyclops. And so even just with glints and those movements of like, how can we relay eye contact without actually having eye contact? That's quite powerful.
I was under the welcome impression that you and Mrs. Summers were leaving us.
Not a chance. I'm keeping an eye on you.
Scott?
Was there also other specific moments with characters or specific moments in the show where you're trying to relay that perspective or relay that specificity of that character?
As a boy, my people's homes were burned to ash because we dared to call God by another name. A future where human and mutant could relinquish the past and finally...
When Magneto pulls the UN members up into space, so he's doing his full monologue of his mantra for the season.
For an old friend has challenged me to remember this view of Earth.
You know, we are telling the audience what his thesis is, but we also found a moment to show the audience the birth of Nathan. There is space for everybody here. We all have a right to be here. We are showing the birth of another mutant who has the right.
But merely to accept that this is a shared world with a common future, and that my kind, like yours, have the right to live in it. I am trying to be better. Do not make me let you down.
And so sometimes it's also like doubling down on the telling and quadrupling the showing.
Yes.
And so that we're doing extra work on the telling to justify twice as much showing. And I'm juxtaposing these two realities to put the audience in the middle of it and say, make your decision.
Well, was there a specific moment where you kind of were doing that doubling down?
No, I think another great example of that is in 108, at the end of 108, where Magneto gets free and we hear the dialogue from Val Cooper. We are setting those chess pieces of this is where everyone is. This is where Roberto is. This is where Jubilee is. This is where all the pieces are to start dealing with this threat. We are proving Magneto right. That line at the end of Magneto was right. We're proving his point visually. So when she hits that, it hits so hard because this man has been avoiding this moment the entire season, and you've pushed him into this corner.
Yeah.
And by having her dialogue do the work for us, but visually we are setting a lot up.
Tragedy lures with fortune first. This was a good week for our people.
We want to go here. We don't necessarily want to go here. But if we go here, what if we went double here? Oh, shit. And it's to the point of Ash you're saying. You never want your audience to question if that was a choice you made. The back of my head question is always, I never want the audience to go, oh, did they mean to do that or did they not? If it becomes too questionable, lean harder into it. To the case point with Asher is during the episode 2, we're doubling down on the telling and then going thrice doubling down on the on the showing. For me, it was, again, that comes back to Gambit, the Gambit send-off. It was too satisfying in a way where, you know, you got to say goodbye.
The cards always be in my favor.
And as a fan, I want to give it Gambit. I want more Gambit. Okay.
Yeah.
Come back.
Remember it.
Well, you're making me rethink about me being edit director right now. And it's like, yeah, cut out this VO, but actually, you're kind of since like sometimes you kind of need to double down on the monologue on the VO, and like how can we be showing that more? Damn, you're making me rethink my whole structure on that project now.
We've got that moment where Magneto and Rogue are having their first kind of heart-to-heart, and we're going from that to the invasion with the helicopters descending with Val Cooper. And we're literally going from, you know, what is the language for where we are right now to you're under arrest.
Holy shit.
You know, sometimes it wasn't working. It's a matter of like the camera's in the wrong place. Like, if we just shift this here, we get it. And then part of, you know, that transition was we've got Magneto and Rogue in front of the window. We got to come out to the perspective of we're transitioning from in-room to out-of-room as the key for the audience to know that we're moving now.
This is the part where we're having a really serious interview and I do this really kind of comedic segue into a cool product. So here's the story to why I'm mentioning this one. Outside of this show, I'm actually working on a documentary, like a pretty big one, but obviously I can't say who it is for yet. But I can say that the names rhyme with spam and moldy, and they kind of follow this Blair Witch Project vibe, and so I need to kind of match that vibe. As in, I need to get good music cues to match that vibe. Yeah, you see where I'm going with that. Look, searching for tracks is like one of the most frustrating parts. And this is actually one of the few AI features that I can get behind, where you can use AI to help you find the track that you want. So I'm gonna use Audio's Link Match AI to do that. Audio is a music licensing site that has a great catalog of artists and composers that you can use in your content. So I like the soundtrack from this movie, The Witch. I can't play it because of copyright, but I can copy that link, put this into Link Match AI, and it uses its catalog to give me tracks that sound similar. that's tense. That works. That works. That would have taken me like an hour to do at least. And of course, you know me, I love to really play around with the timing of the music. So I can download all of the stems. Try Audio today with the link in the description and use our code EDIT70 for 70% off your first year of their pro subscription. So that's $59 for the entire year of using all of their catalog and their AI search tools. Thanks for letting me tell you guys about this. Let's get back to the conversation. Has show gotten really, really popular, and this hadn't happened with any Disney Plus shows before. It had to be new and inventive.
This game is over.
Show the lady some respect.
How do I get out of here?
She's trying to escape.
When I first came here, I ran away, just like you.
While also like retaining some of the qualities of the original X Men show that we do know and love. I think, what were some of the experiences and challenges you had when you were trying to develop the balance of if it's still being a love letter to the original show and it's still being what we would enjoy in TV and film today?
We are working in a comic book medium, but the only kind of comic aspects that we pull from that medium are these kind of hero shots of just, you would want that on a cover.
Yeah.
To me, my X-Men.
We're taking all the elements from it, but we're taking it very seriously and just giving these little gifts not only to the audience but ourselves of just, these are the guys you want hanging on your bedroom wall, you know?
There's just certain people, they're gonna fucking speak. Magneto, Beast, Xavier, Storm.
Ancient sands, heed my command and reclaim these relics of hatred.
When Storm's doing her, being goddess as fuck and summoning the wind powers.
Surrender the boy or face my fury!
She can never sneak attack. That's what I love about our action. Our action is never action for sake of. There's stakes. And there's stakes because you care about the characters. Why do you care about the characters? Because they're relatable as hell. And even with all that action, there is still storytelling. We still hit storytelling over everything.
Universality only comes out of specificity. Like, if you try and tell a universal story and tell as broad a story as possible, it speaks to nobody. The more specific you make the storytelling, it speaks to everybody. And every character is represented and every person is kind of seen through them. And so you've got a universality of the storytelling through the specificity of the crew and these characters.
If we're not saying, oh, damn, at the end of that sequence, the audience isn't going to. So be rest assured, I said, oh, damn, when I saw dailies and we got animation coming back in and I saw what it was going, I was like, yeah, we're going to be fine. It's going to be good.
I don't often audibly respond to when I watch TV, but this did make me audibly respond like, oh, damn, that was fucking epic. I loved it. Was epic a word in the 90s? I don't think so.
Radical?
That was radical. That's what it is.
My favorite contribution to the lingo of the 90s, getting Jubilee to say fresh.
One day life's fresh, then the next day you're waking up to a blue monkey singing Mozart as he tinkers with doohickeys.
Brilliant, yeah. You're right.
You could tell a certain age on the crew when some heads went, huh? And the others went, mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
And if you notice, we're not an action-heavy show. We are very much melodrama.
Yeah.
Episode 9, when, calling back to Fatal Attractions, when Wolverine politely punctures Magneto.
This feud is over.
And in the comics, Magneto goes on this, 6-bubble monologue. This feud, our long-standing thing, is over. In reality, in a moving medium, time just counts. Mm-hmm. It is inspiration and pulled from the comics, but it's not Magneto's full monologue, but you don't feel that.
Interesting workshopping about how pacing, how that can project respect. If the scene is too short, it's a disrespect. If it goes too long, it kind of feels like you're milking the grief in a way. Is that kind of more of a universal concept probably in most scenes, or was it more specific to that one?
We are such a monologue and dialogue heavy show. And to be honest, it's every episode. My mentality and kind of the overall mentality of the show is just because we can doesn't mean we need to. You could either tell your audience how to feel or show your audience how to feel. What we show is just as important as what we don't show.
This is probably one of the most challenging projects I've ever worked on from a pacing perspective. These feel like hour-long episodes for the amount of story we're telling that we're cramming into 26 minutes. And you're going from fight scene to monologue to love moment to fight scene to... It is breakneck, the speed in which we're exchanging scenes and what those beats are. It's a lot of very specific storytelling in how we are shifting perspective, mostly, to be able to justify the shifting in pacing.
I've been having that experience recently. There was a documentary that I just finished, and there was what I thought was a huge pacing issue. I was like, everything just stops for like 5 minutes here, and I'm like sort of like begging the director, can I please just cut this down just a little bit more? Can I make this a little bit faster? And he's like, no, it's great. No, it's great. He then screen tested it to prove his point that it was great, and audiences were saying, man, that 5-minute sequence was one of the best parts of the video. And I'm like, wait, what? I thought it was one of the worst parts, because I couldn't see, when we're so in it, we can't see if it's actually working anymore. Absolutely. Jake, I'm interested in, what about you? Like, is there even a specific detail or moment for you that you were really happy with?
Gambit, see your bet and raise it.
For me, it was working on the send-off for Gambit. I boarded that sequence 3 separate times in 3 different ways. We have 3 different endings.
Every gambler has a tell. Modesty was Gambit's.
It was rough going through those different variations because they have to hit every time.
How could she not be here? He saved all of us. He saved her.
It wasn't just about killing off a character. There's so much respect you have to put into it. So much, the proper time. If you say goodbye too long, it's, oh my God, they're just milking it out. But if you say goodbye too little, then it's like, oh, we just said a big FU to the character. It's too satisfying, believe it or not, to get to say goodbye to Gambit as an audience, along with Rogue. We shouldn't get to.
Sugar. I can't feel you.
One of my favorite things about being an editor is that we are the avatar for the audience.
Yeah.
It is part of our responsibility that we are forcing ourselves to remain audience members, a certain part of our head and eye. Learning how to hack yourself. I will put myself in various spots in the room, because sometimes if you're just looking at the monitor from a different area, it changes. Your brain just clicks over to see something differently. Learning how to kind of like fool yourself is a really good trick with getting out of those spots.
I saw it on my laptop because it's not as high scale as you guys, but I saw it on my laptop, and I'm like, I don't know if this is working anymore. I would then put it on my television, sit back on the sofa watching the television. I was like, no, yeah, this is working. This is working. But it's like, but when you're seeing it on a different device, and then I'll even watch it on my phone, completely changes how the viewing experience and all of it is.
As an editor, our number one role is the management of information.
Yeah.
And how we manage that from, is it better to be on the face of the person hearing this or the person telling this? Or aside from that, is it better to just be in the room? How that information of the story is being managed through A to B, and the tools that you bring to that and how effective you can do that is the joy of it. But that is the responsibility.
We just have the dignity not to whine about it. You see? It's the whining. I hate your whining just as much as I hate you.
Why do people hate us?
People fear what they do not understand.
X Men is and always has been and always will be and always should be about prejudice and an allegory for such. And just also why the 90s of it all is still more than relevant to today, for better or for worse. We've learned so much as a people, we've come so far, but yet we haven't. Reminders are always good.
Why is this happening to me? I used to be a normal kid. It's not my fault.
It was built off a specific prejudice of the 60s.
Yeah.
But it is universal. And so whether you move through the 80s and 90s, the aughts or where we are now, the theme is the same, but the details shift. Depending upon where you are and where you visit this series, it's going to speak to a different point in time.
This is our home, you pig. It's all we have left. All you dogs left us.
You think regular folks can sleep knowing you demons are down here?
It's also kind of interesting that some people still don't quite understand that X-Men is an allegory for a lot of prejudice.
I getcha. That's a nice way of saying mutants, weirdos, like me.
Like all of us.
Rotating it through so many different characters' perspectives. How were you, through the storytelling and the editing, able to showcase those perspectives? Was there specific moments?
It's an unbelievably diverse and smart crew that we have the pleasure of working with. From character design to writing to editing to music, a lot of us have just poured ourselves into this series.
A lot of our individual members on the team, we all kind of pour personal, stuff in, or it actually creates something more realistic in the storytelling. It creates relatable beats, relatable stories, relatable moments. But it's another thing to see themselves, but then go, oh shit, I've gone through something similar, or I relate to that, or oh, hey, that's me on screen, and I think that's what the audience is responding to. It's not fake. When I'm in a rut, or when people ask, how do you do whatever, it comes down to a simple question. What is the movie I want to see? You are the movie maker. You are the one watching and making the movie. Just the sheer amount of appreciation and not understanding that the general populace has of editing. I feel like editing is one of the very few jobs in entertainment that's live.
Yeah.
So Jean is pregnant. She's having a moment of crisis with her best friend of, I'm an other. I'm giving birth to what may be another other. And how do you raise a child in a world that you can't protect them in?
I need to tell you something, and I need you not to judge me too harshly. Or tell Scott.
You have my word, Jean.
I really like the close-ups and all of that. It was like they are about to get very close. Interesting.
The danger in this is you don't want Jean to be the bad guy. She's saying some stuff that, you could read as wrong. And so the close-ups do the work of Storm making space.
We're going to get really close, not just in physical capacity, but also mentally and emotionally.
There are times when I think about the baby, his future, and if he's a mutant, how do I tell him he's different? That the world will remind him of it every day. That he must always be careful, always be on guard, or else...
You wish him to be born human.
Talk me through what you're trying to achieve, even just with that.
This is the same level of choreography that is applied to the fight scenes. We can listen to her say that she's worried and wants to protect her child, but the actual instinct and physicality of the character is to be wrapping her own belly with her arm, of just keeping the world at bay. It's showing what we're telling.
Again, Jean could easily cross into the villain, which is what we don't want. We want this to be relatable, to be understanding. Storm says the quiet part out loud. What's important, the pacing in between that line and Jean's reaction and what she says.
That he must always be careful, always be on guard, or else...
You wish him to be born human.
It's giving the space for Jean to think. It's hearing the turning and then the responding. It's giving the space for that to be absorbed, processed, and responded. We don't see Storm's full face until the end of this, right? There's no place for you to lay judgment in this scene because we're not giving the opportunity to.
We're living in Jean's space and Storm's coming to Jean. Not Storm bringing Jean to her. Storm's coming to comfort Jean.
Where the dialogue is we're family.
Yes.
But the visual storytelling is I'm here for you, but I'm also here to protect you, your interests, your child, because I'm your sister. And so it's quadrupling the level of imagery against doubling the level of storytelling,
I have wondered what it would be like to be human. It is a tempting daydream. But then I remember how my mutant gifts brought me to this mansion, to this family, to a sister.
Thank you, Storm.
If you come in too early, Storm's being rude or coming off disingenuous, right? Or fake or an alternate agenda. Coming too late, is Jean the bad guy?
Yeah.
The moment in which Storm adopts Jean's story here is where we go wide. So not only are we giving the story space, but you're giving the audience space as well. This is the same kind of pacing technique we were talking about with the car. It's visually representing the pacing of the story and the shape of the story.
There is a wide shot. They are still together in the space of all the, the wideness, right? But there is a degree of separation with the vertical line weight with that window between them.
Oh, wow.
I will say none of this shit happens by accident. Everything is meticulously planned and thought out and done on this show by a myriad of people on our team.
Wow. That's a really powerful detail. It's one of those, again, like I don't notice it, but I feel it.
To this family, to a sister.
Thank you, Storm. Just ever since I was in Gyric's mind, I can't shake this feeling that something terrible is coming. Boy, do I sound like a fool.
No, Jean. You sound like a mother.
Pacing seems to be one of the most important elements you can do as an editor to help implying the story, showing the story. Pacing seems to be the most important tool for you to really make sure that the story is as clear and as entertaining as possible.
These episodes go from 0 to 200 in 26 minutes. the pacing of the car chase versus the pacing of the sister scene are night and day. But so a lot of the times those two scenes have to live in the same episode, and you don't want to constantly be like jerking and stopping. Of we're going from intimate story to action story to intimate story, and it feeling like these don't actually work as an exchange. And so a lot of it is kind of like instinctually and emotionally mapping out how you drop into these gears and get out of them again.
By the way, hi, none of this exists on any role playing whatsoever. You're watching an animated cartoon. Animation isn't just a children's medium. It is another way to tell stories, and that's what I love about what our show brings to the TV animated medium, is that it just further endorses that.